from this point onwards, if I had to like be a player or a coach of any of the top four, I'd probably pick Brisbane. I think they're in the best position moving forward. Let me paint the picture. It's 2072. Jack's on the front porch with his grandchild. The grandchild goes pop. Who was better, Dusty, Danger, or Fife?
But I reckon, I don't know if they've ever actually played at the grand final, but ACDC has to be number one option. I mean, they're a bit past it probably now, past their prime. But imagine a bit of TNT, bit of Thunderstruck, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to play tunes that get the crowd up and about. Simple as that.
See, you probably love Dwayne Russell. He just frost Robbie Green.
Well, actually, Dwayne Russell's actually my favourite commentator for that exact reason. But
it caused you to go off social media for 3 days.
Yeah, no,
but
completely unplanned. Just devastation for 3 days plus. But anyway,
4 out of 10. But I'll stick with my system. I'm going to give the Eagles a 3 out of 10. I think it's just not what they needed. Their list was old. They need to hit premierships now. They obviously did hit it.
It's a miracle. Oh, yeah. What about that one? Unbelievable. Balotelli. Aguero. Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle. Oh, the ball is close. He's given him. He's given him. Peter Siddle's got a hat-trick on his birthday.
Welcome back to episode 79 of the On the Board podcast. Once again, doing an AFL episode, so we'll just jump into it straight away. When I'm introducing you fellas, I'll get you a bit of a fun one. I'll get you to tell me what your ideal grand final entertainment would be. So it can be just anything really. So Pilch, welcome back, mate. What are you going for this?
I reckon maybe a bit of Dom Dollar at the pre-grand final. Get the crowd into it, cut a few shapes. Discount the beer before the game as well, so everyone can get sauced. But yeah,
that's actually not a bad shout. I was thinking about it when I was brainstorming for this. I was thinking maybe it's time for a DJ. But yeah, I don't know. I think it would be a gag, but yeah, that's an interesting shout, left field. Rowey, welcome back. What are you going with?
Cheers, mate. Good to be back. I've got a bit of a 3-segmented lineup to start off. It's not so much the party vibes, but they're all really good tunes. I've got a bit of Robbie Williams, Let Me Entertain You, to kick it off. Lovely tune there. Bit of Can't Hold Us by Macklemore to get the blood starting to pump. Mm-hmm. And then I think you have to finish it off with Up There Kazali just to get into the footy spirits. I reckon Hire Me Up AFL. I've got that one pretty down pat.
The classic. I like that. Yeah, Can't Hold Us was at the NRL one about 4 years ago, and I can tell you it was a great one. Broady, last but not least, what are you going with here? You're very confident on your answer, so interested to hear what you've got.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, was pretty confident. Mind you, I don't mind the discounted beers, and of course Up There Kazali, that's a must every year. But I reckon, I don't know if they've ever actually played at the grand final, but ACDC has to be number one option. I mean, they're a bit past it probably now, past their prime. But imagine a bit of TNT, bit of Thunderstruck, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to play tunes that get the crowd up and about. Simple as that. Like, we don't want the DMAs or whoever the hell they were on Saturday night. Like, they actually went to sleep. And I've been drinking all afternoon. So, yeah, we want up and about tunes. AC/DC fits the bill perfectly.
Yeah, that's a great shout. They are technically Australian. They're not really left Australia when they were like 3, I think, but we'll claim them, so that's even more reason. But that's probably the perfect one. I thought you were going to go Bon Jovi, actually, as you are a big Bon Jovi man.
Thought that might break the budget a bit too much. I'm conscious of the AFL's finances recently.
That's very kind of you. I've gone 2 routes. So I've gone, if you want to take it like an NFL option where it's like an absolute, like a party, it's a concert in itself, or I've gone with the actual pre-game pump-up vibes. For the NFL route, I've gone a bit of ABBA. I think that would get the crowd up and about. Everyone loves a good ABBA tune. There's so many to choose from as well. I don't know how they'd pick. Kings of Leon as well. They're an up and about band. And then Empire of the Sun. Probably not cool. Footy vibe. Love getting up and about to their tunes, but footy vibes. Look, I don't know if they're like the hardcore band you'd think of like AC/DC, but they are Aussies and Five Sauce. I think they have a few tunes that would get the crowd up and about. And then finally, Eskimo Joe.
Boy.
Pilch and I saw them at the Oz Open, and their main song would be Black Fingernails, Red Wine. So if they brought it home with that, I think the crowd would be pretty up and about. But they've got some other good ones, and they're Aussies as well. So yeah, just an interesting one to finish. Start us off here. I probably should have introduced the episode before we got into it because now people probably got no idea what we're talking about. But about before finals, we reviewed all the other teams' seasons, but we left the finals participants till this episode here, and that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be running through the finals teams in order of when they were eliminated. So we'll finish with the champions, the premiers. But yeah, without further ado, I reckon we kick off with the team that was first eliminated, Western Bulldogs. Rowey, since your boys St Kilda knocked them out, do you want to start us with their season review?
With pleasure, mate. Yeah, nothing season for the Dogs. Look, we know as much about them now as we did about 12 months ago, I reckon. They're very midfield dominant, but don't have a lot of, high quality talent up the top and bottom of the ground. So Wallace was obviously good. He was a big improver this year, bit of a clue to my most improved. But it's hard to be a premiership contender when your number one forward is Mitch Wallace, basically. That sort of medium height type of player. They don't really have any tall forwards. I think Josh Bruce was a massive letdown for them this year, and Norton was obviously injured for the large majority of it. So yeah, a team that was playing finals in the past few years and won a premiership in 2016 was very disappointing to see them knocked out by the Saints, who obviously hadn't played finals since 2011. Do you want me to do my ratings now for them?
Okay, get into it.
Yeah, right. So sorry, Dogs fans, I'm going for 4 out of 10. Nothing here. Your players are only it's obviously a young list, so obviously could have gone harsher, but the last few years have been a bit unknown for the Dogs. It's been very sort of up and down and very disappointing since 2016. So 4 out of 10 for you boys. Caleb Daniel was the MVP. Was obviously just took his game to a whole new level this year. He was very consistent, probably their most consistent performer. My prediction next year, though, is going to be 8th. I've just got them making it, but they do need to fix up that forward line. They'll be getting the number 1 pick in Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, who is the best tall forward in the under 18s at the moment. He's just like Buddy Franklin, apparently. So if they can get some games into him, that could be the key to their success in the future. But that is my sum up for them. And obviously my most improved was Mitch Wallace.
Oh, interesting. That pick is news to me. I've never heard of it in my life, to be honest. That shows me how much I'm into the AFL news. Broady, anything else? Well, you've obviously got something else to add because who have you picked for your awards and such?
Yep, I think Rowey pretty much summed it up. I don't think they've won a final since they won the flag, so they've sort of just been in the middle of the table, not really going up or down. Clearly, their bookends and their spine are their biggest issue. Tim English is promising, but he needs some help. He gets monstered a bit by the bigger ruckman. I think I've made Bruce already in another episode, so I'll leave that. But he wasn't too flash again this year. They're going to get the number 1 pick. That'll help a lot. The midfield bat's really deep, and that's obviously their strength. But probably a few too many accumulators, and I think they'll be happy to try and pass on a Dunkley or a Hunter or someone this off-season to try and get in another like tall defender or tall forward. So that being said, I think 6 out of 10 as a rating. Most improved, I agree, Rowey, was Mitch Wallace. Really became their number 1 forward targets for some games and reinvented himself. And of course, the MVP, I agree with Caleb Daniel, but I also think the Bont. I know he didn't probably poll as well in the Brownlow or something like that, but he's still by far their biggest match winner. And he actually can really damage you as some of their other midfielders don't quite as much. And of course, the prediction 9th for next season for me. They'll just miss out.
Ooh, unlucky Dogs fans. Pilch.
Yeah, you boys pretty much hit the nail on the head. Way too reliant on their midfield, and I don't really think they've got a reliable game plan that can make them consistent enough to push for that top 4. Rating, I went 6 out of 10 because they did make finals, so it wasn't a complete shit show. And MVP, the Bont, and most improved, I went Bailey Smith.
Oh yeah, no, I actually really like Bailey Smith. I think he's going to be a quality player. Yeah, once again using my Brownlow algorithm thing, my BNF was the Bont and most improved. Even though he struggles in a few games, I think he showed a lot of promise this year. And Tim English, I think, after a pretty horrible first year, I think in a few matches he showed that he in the future will be quite a decent player. But yeah, that's it. That's it for the doggies. Now onto the other team who was eliminated in the first week of finals. Pilch, do you want to kick us off? The West Coast Eagles, your least? Are they your least favorite team? Oh, maybe Richmond now.
Yeah. Look, they
Yeah.
were my least favourite team, but definitely Richmond now. Yeah, I don't really know what to think about the Eagles. I mean, they finished 5th, but it was pretty much completely because they played about 13 games at Optus Stadium and just dominated at home. And obviously the first round loss to Collingwood in the finals pretty much made it a failure of a campaign. And I'm not really too confident for them going forward, to be honest. Rating 5 out of 10, MVP Nat Nui, and most improved Liam Ryan.
Yeah, very, very well done, man. I know that was probably tough to talk about it. But my favorite footy memory, well, one of them is definitely you storming out of my house after, was it McGovern slotted
Yeah.
after the siren goal against Port,
they've done it to me
the
twice.
front door open, left the front door open, everything, just said nothing, just walked out. But yeah, Broady, what did you think of West Coast?
Yeah, it was a really strange year for them. They obviously started horribly in the Queensland hub and lost to some bottom sides. Then they went back to Perth and dominated on their home deck, and then finished off a bit slow as well. And of course, lost their final. So, yeah, I think definitely their MVP was Nick Nat in the ruck. Dominant player, deserves to be All Australian. Most improved, I think maybe Oscar Allen is one. I thought he improved a lot. He should be able to continue to play that second ruck role to help Natanui and also push forward. To be honest, I thought they probably deserved the 4 out of 10 rating because they weren't very. Sorry, boys, I got a bit of a blood nose. Anyway, because you don't go and get Tim Kelly, give up 3 first-round picks, and lose in the first final. Like, they're banking on winning a flag. That's the way their list is built, and that's the way it'll be built again for next season. So they're going to have to improve a lot. And then, of course, what's fun? The prediction, of course, for next season. I think 4th. I think they'll bounce back this season. They'll get to play more games at home, and I reckon they'll have one last sort of crack at a flag, repeating from their 2018 effort.
All right, Rowie, before you get into your review, I'll ask you a question. Do you reckon if the final was given to Perth, that West Coast would have won the competition?
Which final?
Well, like just the grand final. Well, I guess they wouldn't have got there, but
Yeah.
would you have backed them to beat any of the grand final teams at home, or do you think they were just not in that class this year?
I don't think they would have this year. I reckon, even though the list was obviously better with the acquisition of Tim Kelly, I think they would have been better off suited last year had they played one of the grand final teams. I just think they sort of failed to fire this year. But I guess I can sort of lead on to my answer for West Coast from that analysis. I saw it as a massively wasted season for the Eagles. I'm going to be harsh because I don't like them either. Yeah, well, look, a season where, if you ignore the first sort of bit of the year, a season where a majority of the games are outside of Victoria, finishing outside the top 4 and getting eliminated first week of finals at your home deck against a team that hasn't obviously played any of its or many of its games in Victoria is just an absolute shit show. Obviously, the start of the season killed their culture, especially the culture at the start of the year. It was Nick Nat's best season, to be fair. They are a much better side when he's in there rather than when they've got Hickey or Whitey rucking. But I think their midfield failed to fire, which is obviously largely due to injuries at points, but it just showed that their depth, as good as it seemed to people, it maybe wasn't as good as it was in reality. You know, we had sort of the likes of Hamish Brayshaw and players like Xavier O'Neill and first-year players sort of running through there at the end of the season, which still managed to beat St Kilda. But anyway, So I think the likes of Shuey, JJK, Hearn, Darling, Nick Nat, Shepherd, they're only getting older. They're not getting younger. Admittedly, I was probably too harsh on the Dogs at a 4 out of 10, but I'll stick with my system. I'm going to give the Eagles a 3 out of 10. I think it's just not what they needed. Their list was old. They need to hit premierships now. They obviously did hit it in 2018, so that was obviously one of the positives for them. But their list, with what they've got now, they need to still be hitting them now because those guys are running out very soon. Obviously, Josh Kennedy's season. Next year might be his last season. So MVP, I've got Nick Nat, obviously. Most improved, Liam Ryan. And I have gone the complete opposite direction. And I know I can speak for you boys. Whenever you do your ladder predictions, you sort of struggle to make too many major changes because you just can't see them really coming. Well, I'm making a change. I'm going the Eagles down to 12th.
Love that.
Injury-prone midfield. Shimmy's doing a hammy every second week. Josh Kennedy is going to die of old age soon trying to carry that forward. They have shown now that they can be beaten at Optus Stadium. I've got them down at 12th next to the Giants at 13th. That's my analysis.
Oh, spicy take. I did. I'm disappointed in them as well because I did have them making the final. But yeah, pretty poor from them. Probably involved in the shock of the final series as well. My MVP was actually not Nat Nui. He just missed out, and Yo was pretty close as well. But the algorithm gave it to Tim Kelly. Quite a shock. I think he started very slow, but I think he came home strong in the votes. So that's him. And then, yeah, most improved I gave to Liam Flying Ryan as well. But yeah, Oscar Allen was definitely in the mix. All right, Broady. I know you're struggling over there with a blood nose, but I'll pose a question to you, mate. Bruce and BT commentating the grand final, yes or no? Do you want to see it again, or is it time for a change?
Oh, well, unless they do some recruiting from Fox Footy, I'm happy with those two because actually JB's pretty good on Channel 7, but I'll stick with BT and Bruce. But like my dream definitely would have Hutto in there at some point. I love Hutto; he's my favourite. Maybe a bit of Hutto and Bruce. I've still got a soft spot for Bruce. Love his passion for the game. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Hutto man as well. Actually, I'm not. I'm very strong against BT. Pilch, who would you like to see? You probably love Dwayne Russell. He just frost Robbie Green.
Well, actually, Dwayne Russell's actually my favourite commentator for that exact reason. But look, I don't really rate any of them. Hutto's probably the best commentator, but I'm not a fan of his voice for some reason. So I'll probably stick with BT. Well, I'd say Dwayne Russell, but no one wants that, so I'll go BT and Bruce.
Rowey, do you want to see them back next year or not?
Look, yes. I just think they've got that big game atmosphere around them. You think of BT and Bruce, you only ever think of, big games at the G, big deciders. I'm a fan of a few of the Fox Footy commentators, obviously Hutto. Dwayne Russell, I think he's got 10 words in his vocabulary and he just uses them non-stop. I mean, next year, a great drinking game for anyone wants to get around it. Count the amount of time Dwayne Russell says blasts it, and you'll be pissed by quarter time because that's the only word he says whenever someone launches a kick 40 metres or longer. So for that reason, I'm going to watch the footy. I could watch North Melbourne and Carlton with anyone watching, but at the same time, I only ever think of those sort of dud games at like Metricon or something when I think of Fox Footy commentators, and I don't know, it's not like I can't stand Russell, but I'll happily listen to others over him.
Yeah, I can't lie. I don't watch as much footy as you blokes, but not a fan of Bruce and BT. I know he's only kind of new to the TV commentary gig, but I would like to see JB in there. Just love how hyped he gets, and yeah, I don't know. I've got something against BT. I hate the way he says the names. Like I know people think it's funny, but I just think he's an idiot. But yeah, Bruce, I'm not really. I'm kind of neutral towards Bruce. I don't really care. Just a bit of a weird unit, isn't he? All right, moving on to the first team knocked out of the second week of finals. We'll start with you, Rowie, as they are your side, the red, white, and black of St Kilda. What do you think of that? Your own season, mate?
Well, I think it's pretty safe to say the pass mark for us Saints fans was a finals berth, so that was a big tick. It was also a sixth as well, so it was a home elimination, so that was a big tick. It wasn't just a scraping in for an eighth. And then obviously to win a final was a huge bonus. So I think the season wasn't just a pass, but it was more like a distinction, like we cop at uni. Well, not me, but anyway. So all of the new recruits, I think, fired. They all sort of exceeded expectations, except for Bradley Hill. So the 800,000 a year. I mean, it is what we needed, a bit of run and carry, and he had really good moments in parts of games, but we only ever saw it a few times. He'd be running across the boundary to hit a target directly in front, 20 metres out, and you just think, how the hell did he do that? But it would only ever happen like once a game. But anyway, so flip the tables and give us the win in a few of those sort of tight matches, which we had a lot of the year, and we're finishing top 4, top 2 even, because we had obviously we've had 2 massive chokes that I can't even believe how those happened. And obviously we had about 3 or 4 games go down to the last second. So I think we've cop a bit of luck with those ones. We're top 4 chances. Marvel Stadium next year. Another year under Maxi King, I think we're going to be ready to fire. So I'm giving us an 8 out of 10 this year. I think we made the finals, won a final, which I just didn't see us winning just because I just didn't trust us in the big game spectacle, but I was proven wrong gladly. MVP, obviously, Jack Steele, an absolute bull. Considered switching sexualities because it's for him. But anyway, next year I've got us finishing 4. I've got us scraping into the top 4 with our return to Marvel Stadium. I'm ditching my pessimism for us, and I'm going full adopting a religion, going St Kildaism. Most improved was Dan Butler, even though he came from the Tigers, obviously, but he was a fringe player, wasn't even playing, and for him to then make the All-Australian squad was a massive improvement for him. So that's my analysis of the Saints.
Yeah, wowza. Broady, are Carlton at Marvel as well?
Yeah, but we're slowly trying to transition away from it.
Yeah, because if Carlton stays at Marvel next year, Marvel's actually, the stocks are rising.
Mate,
It's going to be more good games
if we
at
start
Marvel
winning
than
games, there won't be enough seats at Marvel. I'll give you the tip.
yeah. If Essendon can pull their finger out, Carlton and St Kilda keep rising, Marvel's going to be the place to be. Stuff the G. Broady, do you want to add anything else? Well, I'm sure you've got something to say about St Kilda.
Rowey obviously knows his team very well. I think they just about got the most out of they could with their list this year. Obviously, they recruited really well, so that was a big plus. Recruited in areas like really specifically. I find often clubs just recruit players because of names or something, but they actually targeted where they needed assistance on the field. I still think they're 1 or 2 genuine A-grade midfielders away from making that leap into the top 4. So that's why I'm going to have them finishing 7th next year. I don't think they'll make a leap. They still could win a final, but I don't think they'll make the top 4. And then, MVP, clearly Steele, one of the best midfielders in the comp this season. Dan Butler, spewing Carlton didn't get him. We were focusing on Papua the whole time and let him just slide under our radar. So that was a bit disappointing. I think as an overall rating, I'll give him a 9 because Ratton was a fantastic coach. He got the best out of the list. Considering they didn't play many games, obviously none of the Victorian teams played at home much. So, massive tick for the Saints this season.
Yeah, Pilch.
Yeah, I reckon Saints fans can be stoked with this season. Obviously, all the new recruits tore it up, and it was on the back of a lot of young players improving, and they've got quite a young list. So I think they're in a very good spot going forward. Rating same as Broady, 9 out of 10. MVP Jack Steele, and most improved probably should be Dan Butler, but I would like to give a shout out to Dougal Howard. Struggled to stay in the team at Port last season and became one of the elite key defenders at St Kilda this season, which hurts a bit, but I like to see him succeed. And next season, I've got the Saints finishing 5th. And I just realised I forgot my next season predictions for Doggies and West Coast. So Doggies, I've got 8th and West Coast 6th just because of the how good they are at Optus.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's pretty funny how we used to genuinely laugh at Dougal at matches for Port, and now he's like a genuine top quality defender.
I still can't believe it, to be honest, but
yeah, it's outrageous. For me, obviously MVP Steele, and then it was really hard to pick most improved for St Kilda. Obviously, Butler's probably the standout, but I think Wilkie, Howard, even Caulfield, and like Rowan Marshall, he was pretty good last year. I think like people who play Supercoach have probably known Marshall ever since he debuted, but he was pretty awesome again this year. So all four, any of those 5 could have won most improved for me. But yeah, why not get around Dougal? Or actually, no, I'll go Wilkie. I think he got the most votes out of that pack. All right, Collingwood. Pilch, do you want to kick us off with your thoughts on Collingwood?
Yeah, quite an up and down season with Collingwood. They scraped their way to 7th and obviously had that good win against West Coast in the qualifying final. So, I mean, yeah, it's tough to see where they're going next season and beyond, though, to be honest. I've got them slipping down to actually staying at 7th. I think they've got a bit of work to do, and players leaving, such as Treloar, rating 5 out of 10, which is probably lenient, to be honest, because they were probably tipped to make the granny. And yeah,
to win.
it was definitely a letdown of a season for the Pies. Taylor Adams, MVP, Braden Maynard, most improved.
Yeah, they're very nice. Those 2 absolutely killed it. Broady, what do you think of the Pies?
Oh, well, I don't like the Pies much, so it was good to see him struggle a bit this year. I mean, they probably ended up doing okay to make 7th because they did have some key injuries to key players. Obviously, Sidebottom, Howe, De Goey, and Treloar all missed like large chunks of the season. But seems to be a bit of a rabble down at the Holden Centre because Treloar, obviously, that seems to be mismanaged, whether he's on the way out of the club and he's not really sure what's going on. De Goey and his management don't just really know what's going on. So they've obviously got themselves into a salary cap squeeze, and some players are going to have to go. And I'm just a bit worried that, they might be at the end of their sort of premiership window. I don't think many players improved this year either for them, really. Like, a lot of them actually probably got worse. You think of guys like Grundy, Cox plays one good game a year. He's not very good. They probably had a few players improve, but a lot of them are sort of, stagnated. That being said, MVP for me was Taylor Adams. He did bring his game to a new level. Most improved for me was Dacos. Obviously, he won Goal of the Year. Probably shouldn't have won Goal of the Year, but that's all right. He was much improved playing on a wing, really skillful player. My rating out of 10, I'll give him a 5.5. I think it was just a pass mark. Considering they did win that final over in the West, that was an unbelievable win. Definitely the highlight of their year. And I'll predict them to, I think, 9th. I actually think they might slide again. I think if Treloar leaves, once again, if they get a couple injuries to some key players, I think their depth a little bit tested. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, bro, what do you think about Collingwood?
Yeah, well, speaking of weird seasons, this is as weird as it came. Round 3 against St Kilda, they looked like they had Lee Matthews and Dunstall out there, but then, come Melbourne later in the year, they lost by 10 goals and it looks like Gold Coast a few years ago. So it was funnily enough, they ended up sort of roughly where people picked them at times. I think looking back to the very, very start of the year, which obviously seems like decades ago, I think we had them as the grand final contenders. But as the season sort of went on and they sort of fluctuated a bit, we saw them as just that team that might scrape in for finals, which they did inevitably. Apart from Pendles, though, ball use isn't great. I think that's a big issue for them, which is why I think they're trying to force Treloar out. They are back to the G next year. They're going to have Grundy fit. They're going to have Howe back. But they are getting old. Their list is getting old. And I think the way that the Treloar situation has been managed, I've heard it's not good at all. Obviously, they offered him that big deal pretty not long ago at all. And now they're kicking him out. So I think he's obviously an integral part of that club and that culture, and he's being forced out. And I think it's going to be a situation where it impacts a lot of the club. Obviously, there's that situation with De Goey as well, which I won't touch on. But I think there might be a few of those sort of behind-the-scenes issues next year for them. So I've got them sliding down to 11th. I've got them falling that far, also largely based to the fact that there's all those rising up-and-coming teams that are, I think, putting a lot of pressure on the teams that are around the 8. I think that's obviously a big reason why I put West Coast down at 12. I think there's those teams like Carlton and Freo and Gold Coast. There's that massive glut of teams that are pushing for finals now. And I think if you do your ladder predictor, I think you're probably going to lock in Richmond, Brisbane, and Geelong as the top three. Sorry, Pilch, and then I think the the bottom four was pretty set. And I think between 4 and 14, it can be any order. So I think that pressure from teams is going to force teams like Collingwood out of it. So I've got them falling to 11th. I've got MVP as Taylor Adams, obviously. You boys explained that. I also had Dacos as most improved, but for variety, I'm going to go Brandon Maynard. I think he's took his game to another level this year and was a really important part of that back line.
Yeah, for me, MVP was Maynard, actually just pipping Adams, and then most improved probably Maynard again. He showed a lot last year. I've always actually liked the way he plays. Same as Darcy Moore, but they're probably the two standouts for most improved. But yeah, I'll give it to Maynard for both. Why not? Before we get into the third weekend of finals and the team who lost there, Broady. Obviously, the main change to the rules this year was the shortened quarters. Do you think it was a success, or do you not like it at all?
I was definitely against it early in the season, but as I got used to it as the season went on, didn't mind it. I think I'll compromise, go to 18-minute quarters next year, just a little bit longer, but not quite as long as it was before. I actually think that's where they will sit for quarters next season, at that 18-minute mark.
Yeah, it's a pretty drastic change just to cut 20% off each quarter. But yeah, all right. Moving on to the second last round of finals. Obviously, first game, Port Adelaide versus Richmond at the Adelaide Oval, and sadly, Pilch went. This caused Pilch. Well, I don't know. Were you planning on this before? It caused you to go off social media for 3 days.
Yeah, no,
but
completely unplanned. Just devastation for 3 days plus. But anyway,
yeah. So I had to whip out the SMS, but to contact the big fella, but that's all right. Made sure he was alive. But yeah, Richmond obviously unfortunately knocked Port out at the Portress. But however, it was a pretty good season. What did you make of it, mate?
Yeah, well, I'm still getting over that game, but I'm not going to dwell on it. It was definitely a hugely successful season for Port. Far exceeded anyone's expectations. Minor premiership, prelim final. In my opinion, definitely the second best team in the AFL, not having a bar of Geelong making the grand final. Probably more mad about that than us losing to Richmond, but anyway. Yeah, I think we're in a very good spot. We've got some young talent, but our elite players that kind of carried us this season are starting to age, like Boak, Robbie Gray, Dixon. So I think we've probably got definitely next season, maybe 2 more years of the premiership window. Yeah, so 9 out of 10 just because we didn't get it done. Probably deserves a 10, but I'm not going to give a 10 out to someone that didn't win the flag. MVP, definitely Trav Boak. He's elite and most improved. There's an obvious one. I'm sure one of you boys will touch on him, but I'm going to go with Trent McKenzie down back. One of our most reliable players all season, has pretty much been an absolute myth. He's only known for his 65-metre torps before this year, but he's a genuine good key defender now and very consistent. And next season, first. I think we're still in the window and I'm going first. Minor premiership.
Spicy, I like it. Broady, what did you make of Port's year?
Oh, it was a fantastic year, really. I mean, if you said to me in February that they'd lose to Richmond by a kick in the prelim final at Adelaide Oval, I would have said, you're kidding. So, they far exceeded expectations. Their senior players were enormous all season, really stood up. I love Dixon. I love the way he plays. He's a big presence. Then they've got that young youth, Rosie, Butters, Dersma. We know the names, but they're going to continue to improve and be there for another 10, 12 years as really good players for the football club. So they were really, really positive. And of course, Kenny Hinkley, I wish all coaches had the passion that man has. Like, too many of them are boring, play the straight bat to the media, but Kenny's got a bit of fire in the belly, and I love that. MVP, clearly Trav Boak. He's unbelievably fit, tough around the footy, continues to elevate his game year after year. My most improved was a hard one, but I'll go with Darcy Byrne-Jones just because, he was all Australian, slightly controversially, but became a much improved player throughout the season on the half-back line. I've got to give him a 9.5 out of 10. Same as Pilch said, can't be a 10 because they didn't win the thing, but they came pretty darn close. And next year, I think I don't think they'll finish top, but I think they'll finish third or fourth. They'll be in the top four again.
Rowey, what do you think of them?
Yeah, well, to come from outside the top 8 and finish first was obviously a massive win in hindsight. And then to beat Geelong in the first week of finals. I don't know about you boys, I was tipping Geelong, and Port obviously came out on top, so I think that was a massive win for them. I think they've got a perfect mix of experience and youth, and that sort of middle age bracket. I think they've nailed that perfectly. Their youth is obviously very exciting, in Butters, Rosie, and Dersma. Adelaide Oval is a bit of a fortress. You know, they get the never tear us apart start of games. I remember obviously Pilch, good mate of Tyler, said that he was as soon as he heard that you never tear us apart, he just said he knew they were losing. So that's obviously a big advantage point to Port Power there. Obviously, Boak's a massive part of the list, and they obviously need to fire again next year because he's obviously not getting any younger. I think a few years ago, they thought his career was cooked until they moved him into the midfield, that's probably the only story you're ever going to hear about someone being cooked and then moving to the midfield and then, playing on another few years. But there you go. He's an animal. So, yeah, BNF, got to go with Travis Boak. Obviously, was, came top 5 in the Brownlow, whatever, did his part in my sports bet multis, so I've got to go with him. MVP, I'll give Zach Butters obviously a shout out. He's for a kid our age to be playing on the big stage the way he plays, I think is absolutely unbelievable. He's there. Rosie's known for his X factor, but Zach Butters is known for the let's go the lowercase X factor, because he sort of gets in there, get those insane handballs out and stuff. So he's obviously elite and they're most improved. Next year, though, I know I've just pumped him up a ton. I've got him finishing, don't kill me, Pilch. I've got him finishing 5th, but I've still got him going deep. I just rate the other top 3 teams more in Richmond, Brisbane, and Geelong. And I've just a bit of St Kilda bias. I've got us coming in there 4th. So, yeah, I've got your boys finishing 5th there.
Yeah, huge year for Port. I've got Boak winning the MVP. It's pretty as you touched on, Rowey. It's pretty amazing what Boak's done with his career. Like, he was just like a pretty good club player, and then the last 2 years he's just gone super sane in the guts, which is pretty unusual for. It's usually the other way. You usually send them up forward when they get old. And then most improved, I've actually gone with Ollie Wines. I've got to issue an apology to Mr. Wines. I absolutely hated Ollie Wines last year. He was the slowest, widest truck ever, and he was just useless on the footy field. And then this year, he just kind of became a contested bull. So yeah, probably should apologise to him and probably Kenny as well. Kind of similar to like the Damien Hardwick story. A lot of people were calling for his head last year, and I was definitely one of them. So pretty impressive what he has done. But yeah, Butters probably should deserve most improved. I think he's going to be one of these blokes his whole career. Even if he gets 15 touches, there's like a 80% chance that he's had a better game than someone who has 30 touches. Just what he does with those touches, but also what he does that doesn't get recorded in the stat sheet. Like, he'll put on bumps like blokes 3 times his size, and yeah, he's just a huge player. A lot of the intangible stuff that he does is really impressive and kind of what you love to see as a fan. All right, next up, we've got the Brisbane Lions. Rowey, do you want to tackle this one?
Sure thing, mate. Well, for Brisbane, obviously making the prelims was an improvement on last year in its own. But they were beaten by a bigger and better side, as they were last year to Richmond in the first week of finals. So, yeah, I'm not as hard as them as other people are, but 2020 was definitely their year to, if they wanted to make an early premiership push in their sort of, 10-year campaign. And this year was definitely a good year to get a start, and they did so marginally to get to the prelims, but I think they obviously failed to fire in sort of mainly the second half of that game. Top 10 in the BNF, though, Dane Zorko is the only one that's over 28 years old, so that's obviously a very positive aspect of their list. When fit and firing, obviously Danaher's nominated Brisbane as his preferred destination, so when Danaher's fit and firing, he might be the final piece of their puzzle. Plays the sort of mainstay forward, let Hipwood got the ground, and Danaher can kick his 0 goals 10 and get those extra 10 points on the board. So then the hardness of, I look at their midfield though, the hardness of Lyons and Berry, class of Neil, X factor of Zorko, and just the supreme ball use of McCluggage. That's a premiership winning midfield in itself. We've obviously got Harris Andrews down the back, where I think is like 23 or something. So they're going to be around for some time, the Lions, and I'd be shocked if they didn't win a premiership in that time. But as we saw in round one, they got killed by Hawthorn of all teams at the G. So they are going to have to fix that sort of MCG hoodoo, which they can't have done this year, obviously, with COVID. But that will probably be their number one key addressing point for next year, because obviously there'll be a lot of games at the G next year and in Victoria. So I'm going to give them, it was a good year for them, but for them to sort of have a disappointing exit in finals for the second year in a row, I'm going to give them a 7.5. But I think they will obviously be around for some time, given the quality of their list. Next year, I've got them second. I've got them finishing in that sort of top bracket. They tend to do well in home away season, as they did last year and this year, but then obviously fall away in finals. So they'll be looking to address that. Most improved, I've got a bit of a left field one. Brandon Starcevic was able to keep out Alex Witherden, who played all games in his first 2 seasons at the club. Starcevic is a year older than us, but he's absolutely massive. He's an absolute unit, and he's an absolute rock for them down back. I guess he kind of replaced Luke Hodge in his sort of role that he played for a year or two. And then obviously the MVP is Lachie Neale for me.
It just occurred to me, how did we go the whole Port section without mentioning Charlie Dixon? Pretty harsh from us. He'd surely be a contender for most improved. But yeah, anyway. Broady, what'd you make of the Lions?
Obviously an improvement from last year, considering they were able to win a final this year and get a home prelim. I mean, this season was funny for them because they didn't really have to leave the state much. They played a couple games in Melbourne and Sydney, maybe. Obviously they're going to be around for a long time. They've got a young list. Obviously, Danaher is the missing piece. I mean, you can't do much damage if you got Dan McStay. No offense to him, as your second best forward, and Hipwood's he's definitely a second best forward in the side. Hipwood's a bit, I don't know, rangy and not very tough and contested marking player, which you need. I think they'll continue to improve next season. So I'll go with my prediction now. I think they actually will finish top. I think they're pretty dominant at home. The Gabatoirs has become a bit of a fortress. So they're dominant up there. MVP was obviously Lachie Neale. And most improved was a difficult one. I mean, there was a few blokes that did improve. I'm going to throw a bit of a left field one. I got Callum Archie. Bit of a strange one, I know. But I thought he actually played some good games this year. When they played Carlton, he actually took like 6 or 7 really good intercept marks across the back line in that game. And I was like, oh, this guy can play. So, I'll go with him. And, my
Pilch.
rating, sorry. My rating.
Yeah, you go.
And I'll give him an 8. I mean, yeah, as Rowey said, was their biggest chance at a flag that they're probably ever going to get. So, slightly wasted in that respect.
Pilch?
Yeah, well, overall, a good season. Improved on last year, came second, made a prelim, but I do think they're overrated. A lot of their wins were very close and probably undeserved. I think they beat North by 1 point, Saints by 2 points, and a couple others. But having said that, as you boys said, very young list, and they're definitely going to be contenders for definitely the next few years and probably even more. Rating, I've gone 7 out of 10, and MVP Lachie Neale, and most improved. For me, it was out of the 2 Jareds, but I've given it to Jared Lyons over Jared Berry. He was good last season, but became genuinely elite this season, and I think he's one of, if not the most underrated players in the whole AFL. And next year, I've got him coming third.
Yeah, I agree with you. Pilch, most improved for me was Lyons. He's kind of always been a handy collector of the footy, but this year went to another level, and then obviously Lachie Neale, MVP. But yeah, it's kind of a weird season for Brisbane. There's almost a sense of disappointment coming off the back of it, because as you guys mentioned, obviously home grand final, it'll never happen again, barring something outrageous. And yeah, and they like beat the eventual premiers, so there's probably a bit of a weird feeling at Brisbane right now. But overall, I would rather be, from this point onwards, obviously Richmond have won 3 premierships, but from this point onwards, if I had to like be a player or a coach of any of the top 4, I'd probably pick Brisbane. I think they're in the best position moving forward. I think Port, although they've got a good few young players, I think they've got a really weird mix of ages where they've only got a really short window, and then Geelong's getting a bit older, and then Richmond. Well, to be fair, Richmond aren't that old, but yeah, actually froth Brisbane's chances of going on a bit of a being the next dynasty almost. But St Kilda or Carlton might say hold my beer on that one. Broady, since you're our resident question answerer, mate. This one's about the footy frenzy. Obviously, I don't know the exact details of it, but it was something. There was pretty much a game every day for about a month, if I'm not mistaken. There was a couple days off, but 3-part question. Did you like the footy frenzy as a viewer? Would you like to see it make a return? And just in general, could you follow a sport? Well, you kind of do with basketball, but could you be a diehard for a sport that plays every single day?
All right. First part, did I like it? Yes. But I think I'm slightly influenced by the fact that we were in stage 4 lockdown, basically. So we didn't really have much else to do or watch. I think in my normal life, it would be too much. Like, it just gets a bit fatiguing. So I'm a no for it next year for as maybe one 2-week block in the school holidays or something where they have a game every night. That could be all right, but no more than that. I find I'm probably so passionate about footy that I love to watch so many games. Like NBA, I follow, but I don't need to watch all the games. Just keep tracking scores. So, and I don't think it would really work in the AFL, and especially because they're trying to, get crowds and get money back again. I think they're better off keeping the games mainly on weekends.
Yeah, Rowey, you're absolutely obsessed with footy, mate. But was this too much of a stretch for you?
Definitely wasn't too much of a stretch. Could have had 5 games on a day, and it wouldn't have been. But I'm obviously I'm a big fan of the tradition that we hold. The sort of the week build up. You're doing your Supercoach team every second. You're reading your articles. You're watching on the couch and the bounce. Sorry, not the bounce. AFL 360. Every night, and you get to Thursday, Friday night, and the weekends come. Saturday's the best day of the week. You've got footy from you've got 5 games all between 1 and 10 o'clock. I'm a big fan of that sort of system. I don't think, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And obviously, you've got to consider the players as well. I think it would have been absolutely hell for them having to play all those sort of condensed games. Obviously, the shortened quarters helped, but at the same time, I think they would prefer it to go back to the old system of, the week sort of preparation and recovery. So, yeah, I don't think we should have it either. I wouldn't mind seeing a bit of a version of it for maybe a couple of weeks, but I reckon just go back to the way it was. And then also in terms of quarters, I know I wasn't really asked this question, but I was big fan of the 20-minute quarters, and wasn't a fan of 16-minute. I just feel as though we were less impacted by it because we didn't actually go to the games. I reckon if we went to the games, the 16-minute quarters, you'd be walking away feeling like you were lacking that extra 30 minutes of football. But anyway, so with the quarters as well, I reckon it should be back to 20 minutes, but if not 18. Sorry to answer a question I wasn't asked.
No, go for it. Back to the quarters, probably a good thing, Pilch, that it hopefully gets changed back because we are genuinely 15 minutes late to every match we go to. So we'd missed the first quarter. But what did you think of Footy Frenzy, Pilch? I don't even know if there's talks about it coming back. There probably isn't, but if it was to come back, would you get around it or stick to the weekends?
I pretty much completely agree with everything these boys have just said. I did like it, but it was probably due to COVID, and I'm a big traditionalist in pretty much everything in life. So I'd like to just see this season remain as a unique season and just go back to completely how it was previously next season.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything that's been said. It basically have to take away from the weekend action, which is a big no-no for me. I love me 1 o'clock to 10 o'clock Saturdays. It's probably the graveyard shift in terms of TV, but I froth the early Saturday Arvo game to go to. And I can't see myself going to a Tuesday night game. Obviously it's hard to imagine at the moment because we don't know what going to anything is like, but yeah, definitely don't change it back. And yeah, for the players, I'm sure it's pretty outrageous doing a captain's run on a Monday. It's probably pretty unusual to get used to. All right, that brings us to the finals. Almost gone through all my questions. I've got one more, but before we get into that final question, Geelong, the unfortunate losers of the granny, I won't make Pilch tackle Richmond. So Pilch, you can tackle Geelong, even though you seem pretty outraged that you made the granny. Pilch, what did you think of their season?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, I thought it was a good season for Geelong. Every year for the past 4 or 5 years, everyone said Geelong will get worse next season because they've got an ageing list. But every single year, they're in the top 4, making the prelim. They're just so consistent. And this year, they exceeded those expectations again. Although I didn't think they deserved to make the grand final, they did make it, and it was definitely a successful season. So I've given them a 9 out of 10. And MVP, I've gone with Tom Hawkins. And most improved, Cam Guthrie went from kind of just a squad fill player to a pretty much elite midfielder this season. And next season, I've got him coming second.
Yeah, Broady, what do you think of the Cats?
Yeah, wouldn't you love to be a fan of Geelong? I know they haven't won a flag since 2011, but you just know what you're going to get every season. Super consistent side, well coached. They got match winners all over the ground. Yeah, so it was another really good season for them. I know they fell short in the granny. Obviously, the great man Gary, he'll be done for them. But they're going to probably be back there again next year. They'll get Cameron by the sounds of it. They'll probably get Higgins or Isaac Smith. So, like, eventually all this topping up of older talent will come back to bite them. Like, it's going to have to at some point. But while they've still got guys like Danger and Selwood and Hawkins playing good footy, they may as well keep trying to get back to the top. And who knows, maybe with Cameron down there next year, they can do it next year. My MVP, yeah, I agree. Tomahawk won the Coleman, was the most dominant forward in the competition. My most improved, I'll go with Brandon Parfit and also Menegola, and Guthrie. You go all of them. They got a lot of growth through their midfield, which obviously meant that Danger could play forward in the latter half of the season, which made him more dangerous. I think I'll give him a rating of a 9 out of 10 to make the granny. Was a fantastic effort. And really they had the game played on their terms until the second half. And prediction, I actually think they'll do well in the finals, but I think they'll come 5th. I actually think they'll lose a few games early in the year because their forward structure with Cameron coming in and working all that out, they might lose a few early games.
Yeah, all right, Rowey, what do you think of the Geelong?
Well, obviously they were powerhouses for the majority of the year, or basically the whole year up until the second quarter of the grand final. I think they're the most talented list on paper, to be honest. But the fact that they still haven't won a premiership with the majority of that list is worrying. Obviously, the last premiership was 2011. There was only a couple of current players playing in that. So they were able to. The good thing about them was they were able to monster most of the teams of the comp, except for Richmond, which is obviously the one that they needed to monster when it mattered. So the Tigers beat them with pace, which is the one thing that Geelong lacked. Obviously, Geelong liked to go that sort of kick mark, and then deliver to Hawkins sort of method. The list is getting old. Obviously, Gaz's last year, Dangerfield hasn't won it yet. Obviously, it was scripted for them to win the grand final, but obviously choked when it mattered. Couldn't play 4 quarters. So next year they need to fire because their list is obviously getting old. Obviously they keep on topping up their list. They're going to have Hawkins, Selwood, Guthrie, Duncan. You bring in Sean Higgins. All these blokes are really pushing that sort of age. So next year it is going to come back to bite them, as Broady said, and I think they are aware of that. I think they are aware that in about 5-6 years' time, maybe even less than that, they are going to fall down. But I think they're sort of going for drastic measures to really push for that grand final because they need to get one now, or else it's going to be a wasted sort of dynasty since 2011 because the current list that they've got is just too good to not win a flag. So I think next year I've got them coming first. Given they've got Jeremy Cameron coming in, I think they've got the best list in the comp. They can obviously have Cameron and Hawkins up forward, and either one of those tall forwards is going to thrive having the second best tall defender on them. So you bank in one of them to kick a bag on the day, and you can send Danger down there as well with Sean Higgins coming in. BNF, it was ridiculously hard to split. I have no idea. I've just gone Tomahawk just because I think it was unbelievable and probably his best year. And most improved, Cam Guthrie. Shout out to Jack Henry as well. I think was good, but I didn't put him in there because he cost me a multi once because he turned the ball over when they were playing Carlton, and I think BetEasy had that $5 odds thing, and that screwed up their last chance to win the game and cost me, a chance at Hundy. But anyway, so I'll give them an 8.5 because they did kill it for most of the year by the second half of the grand final, where they obviously got monstered and failed to live up to the big stage. So yeah, I am expecting big things over the next year or two, and if not, then it's going to be danger signs for the future coming after that.
Love the Jack Henry call. Me and Pilch are big Jack Henry diehards. Yeah, MVP, I've gone Danger. Most improved, I've gone Menegola just ahead of Parfit. But one of the two of the statistics in the algorithm are pressure acts and tackles, and Parfit was genuinely top in pretty much every Geelong match for those two stats, and he was always in the votes basically. But yeah, I'll go Menegola, a bit of a new role, and he kind of thrived in it. I think Geelong's one of the more interesting teams to watch next year. There's obviously a lot of compelling teams. You got Carlton and Gold Coast, like just on that verge. Interesting to see when they're going to shoot up. You got GWS seeing whether they can bounce back, but Geelong, I think it's almost a bit of a make or break next year. As you guys have mentioned, the list is right on the age of too old. Probably is too old, really. But they're still going to be in and around it next year. So I think they've got to cash in. Otherwise, it's going to be too late, and the rebuild might be coming in the near future. So definitely an interesting one next year. The Cats. Before we get into the Premiers, final question for the Question Master, Broadbent. We talked about in the last episode. Go check that out if you didn't see it. Between who's better out of Danger and Fife, but let me paint the picture. It's 2072. Jack's on the front porch with his grandchild. The grandchild goes pop. Who was better, Dusty, Danger, or Fife? And I know you love a big game player. You were frothing the guys who were playing well in the NBA playoffs. Has this final series changed your opinion? Is Dusty now better than Danger and Fife?
In one word, yes. Yes, he is. Yeah.
That's huge.
Converted. I mean, you've got to appreciate big time performers. Simple as that. He consistently does it on the big stage. He's a match winner. Really, like Richmond don't have. We'll get onto them in a sec, but they don't have a lot of genuine match winners. They're actually quite consistent across the board. But he is the standout. Yeah, he's going to go down as one of the great players.
Pilch, where do you stand on this debate? Who are you backing in out of the three?
Well, I still don't think he's a better player than Dangerfield and Fife, but I think in 2072, he's the one that's going to go down as the GOAT just because of what he does on the big stage. Like, he's the one that's going to be remembered. So, yeah.
Yeah, everyone will like look at the Norm Smith Wikipedia page and go, that guy must have been a pretty handy player. No side of Danger in there. Rowey.
Yeah, Pilch actually put it perfectly. 2072. Dusty's going to be the one that you know out of those three. Yeah, I have to say I probably converted after this year. He obviously winning 3 Norm Smiths is just a ridiculous feat. I was obviously the first player to do so. And I think I can safely say if you take Dusty out of, let's say you just completely take him out of the list, I don't have him winning as many finals, as many grand finals as they did. That whether that be with the lead up to the grand finals and all the games before that or the actual games themselves, I don't have them winning 3 premierships. He's just that good of a player and just means that much to them. I just don't see where they would, just don't see where they would really function in their list. Obviously they'd be a quality team, but I just think he's just the cream on the top. Fife, I think it's a bit hard on him because he's obviously plays a lot of time injured. So it's funny as he's won 2 Brownlows. He's almost yet to reach his absolute best consistently. But yeah, and I've got them both ahead of Danger actually. Sorry, Danger, but yeah.
Yeah, Danger was right up there with Fife for me personally going into this final series, but Danger took a bit of a hit. I just think that grand final, I thought there was a huge opportunity in that third quarter. Geelong, they were very flat. I said to Locke, I'm like, this is Danger's time to clutch up. And I thought this was like Danger's chance to put his statement as this generation's best player. Well, post Gary Ablett's generation, if you know what I mean. I don't count Gary Ablett in this chat, but yeah, he went missing, and I was really disappointed in that. But yeah, I'm pretty anti Dustin Martin. I think he's hugely overrated, but it's hard to argue now. I've been pretty stubborn on it the last 2-3 years, but yeah, it's at some point you've got to just accept that he's an absolute freak. I'd like to. I'll hold the phone though, because I do think Fife is a chance with this young Fremantle team. Sometime in the next 5 years, to if they get back up to the top, we could see Fife in some more big games rather than irrelevant Sunday 6 o'clock games against North Melbourne. But yeah, very tough debate. If they retired now, you'd probably have to go Dusty. But yeah, I'll give Fife another few cracks at it. But yeah, at this point for Danger, even if he wins one next year, I can't see them all finishing up, and I can't see a world where Danger's not third for me at this point. Sadly for the big fella. All right, Broady, we've been holding you back all episode, mate, but we'll let you have it at. We'll let you go at Richmond. How do you view Richmond's season, mate?
Oh, I mean, you love to hate them, don't you? But you got to respect them and what they do. Magnificently coached, managed to climb the mountain again, despite probably having a lot of off-field issues and some injuries on field as well. I mean, speak of players complaining about the hubs, the 2 players were sent home, like, all sorts of issues on field with reports. Tom Lynch, bit of a dirty dog, whacking blokes every week. I mean, they were copping it from the media and everyone, but they still managed to just get the business done. I mean, they're a fantastic final side because they just apply pressure for 4 quarters, and teams can be good enough to hold them off for a half, then they'll eventually get you. They just run over the top. And the scary part is they're going to be around for many more years. Besides, like, Revolt's getting on a bit, and Cochin probably is past his prime, but a lot of their other players have still got a lot of good football. So yeah, MVP for me has to be Dusty. Wasn't amazing during the season, but his finals was incredible. Most improved, difficult one. I think they said Jaden Short or maybe Shy Bolton.
Oh yeah,
He
good call.
he played a lot in the midfield, especially when I think Cochin was injured, and took his game to another level. The rating has to be 10, doesn't it? They won their 3rd flag in 4 years, continued to show that they're the next, dynasty after your Hawthorns and Geelongs and Brisbanes of this century. And next year, I think they'll finish 2nd again. They get to return to the MCG. That's scary to think about. And they're just going to continue rolling on. Not many list changes, but they don't need to. And they'll be up there again.
Yeah, Roy, what did you make of the Tigers?
Yeah, well, I just, you hate them, don't you? But they just get it done. Obviously, they just stuck to their game plan and just did it. I think that's the phrase that I often use during the year. They're just going to do it just because they can, and they will. Both teams stuck to their game plan actually in the grand final. Obviously, Geelong tried that sort of kick mark. I mean, the Tigers just been for pace and just ran over the top of them in that second half. I think I picked it. I think lots of people watching just knew that they were just going to run. They were going to run over the top. They weren't going to roll over and just sort of cop it for what it was. They were just going to come back and just absolutely tear them apart. They had their errors during the year. They had obviously the wife of Cochin thought it was a good idea to go get a facial and compromise the competition. Obviously, 2 boys thought a kebab and a trip, won't say where, thought was also a good idea to compromise the comp. But anyway, we'll look past that. And the fact that they had players that stepped up like Shy Bolton, who just completely tore apart the competition as well. I think there's about one every year for them, that they have their quality list, and they've got that one player that just steps into that category. I think they had him. They also had Noah Bolter as well, who just stepped into their best 22 and just killed it for them. They're the most confident team I've seen playing since the Hawks. You've got players just laughing before the bounce. I remember as the Saints, everyone looked nervous in that semi-final playing Richmond, determined faces of like, here we are, this is it. And then you just see Richmond and Dusty just sort of laughing and joking when they're singing the national anthem. I'm just so envious of them and just how they can just do it week in, week out, and they just do it year on year. You have to go a 10 out of 10. There's no other rating that can sort of sum up their season and their finish. BNF, more than that, I don't really count finals. I'll go past Dusty and I'll go with Jaden Short, who won it probably deservedly. Actually, if you analyse their season, most improved, I'll go Shy Bolton and Noah Bolter in the tie. I think they're both unreal for them. Next year, I'll go 3rd, but go deep into finals and probably the grand final. They're just, they're the team that don't finish top. They finished in the top 4 and make it. So just for that reason alone, I'll go for them at 3rd.
Pilch, you probably don't want to talk about them too much, mate, because the wound is still fresh, but you can just fire through your awards if you want.
Yeah, wound is still fresh, and I'll admit I can be a sore loser at times with my sport, and Richmond are a pack of absolute flogs, as you two just highlighted, but you've got to give credit where credit's due, and to win the premiership this year with literally everything going against them was bloody impressive, and they're an unreal outfit. But I do have a bold prediction, and I think that they're done and that they've peaked. I'm saying no more premierships. I've got them coming fourth next season, and I don't know. I think motivation might come into it when teams start winning everything. They kind of start losing interest. I think that might play a part, but it's probably more hoping than believing, to be honest. But yeah, 10 out of 10 MVP Martin, just because I've included the finals campaign in that, and most improved. I forgot about Shai Bolton, but I went a smoky in Liam Baker. I think he's a young star in the making and a freak across halfback, but probably Bolton deserves it.
Yeah. But it was a bit of a strange one with Richmond. I feel like everyone knew deep down they were just going to be there at the end. Like, no matter where they were on the ladder, no one wanted to admit it, but they had so many outs and so much chaos, but they were still looking decent. So everyone knew when it was all back together, they were going to be the favourites. And that's, that's what we saw at the end of the day. But yeah, for me, MVP, Dusty, just pip short. Most improved, probably should go to short. But I'll also mention, I think Jack Graham, similar to Parfitt, just a tackling and pressure beast. And then Bolter and Bolton, both of them, the Bolters, they did really well. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one with Richmond. I said I'd like, if I had a choice out of the top four, I'd rather be in Brisbane's shoes. But from here on in, but Richmond, because they're not like, obviously Dusty's their huge game player, but he doesn't carry them in the regular season matches every week. So they're not really reliant on one or two players. So even if a player retires here or there or gets injured, it's kind of hard to see them getting worse because everyone just does a role and like they can just put anyone in from the reserves and they just like don't really drop. Like, it's incredible how they do it. Must have a really good draft team as well because they just draft these randos and they all end up being good. Except they let go Butler. That's probably the worst thing that happened to them this year. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the episode. I think we'll be doing a trade window review whenever that finishes. So I think that's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something. So we should be back here doing this again. But yeah, thanks for joining me, fellas.
Before
do
we
you want to say something, Broady?
Yeah, I love to ask little questions.
All right, go for it.
All right, you've got 100,000 back in the G next year. Let's pretend there's a vaccine. We're all happy days. We're out and about. Do you want to see it starting at 2:30 or 7:30?
The granny.
Yeah, the granny.
All right, Rowey, you go first.
2:30, done.
Pilch.
Yep, 2:30 as well.
I'm actually gonna go option C. I'm gonna say about 5.
Ooh. Fair enough.
2:30 is too early.
Why is that, mate?
I don't want to be done by 4:30. Then you just got the rest of the night. You're like, what do we do now? Like, footy's over.
Then you hit the SP.
I want.
Yeah. You go out, mate.
that's tried. Kind of lockdowns. Yeah, my decision-making process has been corrupted. But no, I wouldn't mind it like a well, that's probably a bit earlier than Twilight, isn't it? But yeah, 4 or something. You can have a nice feed after. But yeah, no, I don't know. But yeah, 7:30. I don't rate it finishing at like 10.
Nah, didn't like it.
No.
Day for me as well. Love the build-up in the morning. Good vibe around the place. Grand final Barbie at someone's house. Then hit
the only thing,
magnificent.
The only way I'd cop 7, obviously it was different this year, but if they're going to do it in 7 in the future, they need about 3 matches. They need footy going from 10 till 7. The NRL grand final day, that's what used to happen. There was about 4 matches and it would actually start at 10. And like, there was just like reserve grades under 20s. And like, at least that gave you something to watch, where this year, I know COVID made everything harder, but like you were just sitting there waiting, really, just twiddling your thumbs. But yeah, thanks for joining me, fellas. And this has been episode 79 of the show. Feel free to check out the past content, our past footy episode, if you want to see us talk about the other 10 AFL teams. But yeah, we'll be back here in under a month chatting about the trades. I'm sure Rowey in particular, you're very excited for every day to see what happens next.
Can't wait.
But yeah, stay tuned. Lots more coming out of the On the Ball podcast and lots more footy content coming your way. Thanks for listening. Cheers.